Yeah. Yeah, no, that's following me around. Anyway, so what they would do is they put all that stuff on a wagon, and then they get that wagon and drive out to the middle of nowhere. And as they're going out there, they'll say, hey, there's a big oak tree next to the creek or whatever in a field. Come Saturday night, we'll have a performance. You just come, bring everybody you know, so they pass out flyers or whatever, and say, as soon as it gets dark, we're going to put on a show. Okay? And for admittance, all you got to do is bring, like if you did animals, you could bring an animal to trade, or crops or food or whatever, just something to give that we could take and sell or trade. And that's what they would do. Even 100 years ago, they were doing this stuff. Some places, they probably still do something similar to it. Okay? But this way, the theaters could actually make a little bit of money. Now, if you were in New York City or someplace like that, that's a little bit different, because there was a steady flux of people coming and going. But in the smaller areas, you needed some ways to be creative. So that's where pageant wagons were designed and created and brought up. Even today, there's still pageant wagons. There's still carnivals that go around, right? There's still a couple of circuses left, I think. City of Fayetteville owns one or two of these.
Oh, that's not Universal Circus. Universal Solar Circus.
Probably. The one that the city owns is basically like a semi-trailer, and then the side flops down on the trailer, so it creates a big, large stage that they can use. Just put your lights on and do it. If you were a concert, if you did, name me a musician, a singer.
Lady Gaga.
A real singer. I'm kidding. Not Lady Gaga. Somebody that's, because Lady Gaga, she came to Fayetteville, that'd fill up the Coliseum, no big deal.
J. Cole, yeah.
J. Cole comes to Fayetteville, he's going to fill up the Coliseum because he's from here. So give me somebody with a little less name.
Last name?
Like 2-bit, what's his name? 50 Cent? Is he still around? Did he die? Is he still in jail? Is he the one? Is he still around?
Yeah, he's still alive.
Oh, he in jail?
Does he do things?
Oh, yeah. He's a very wealthy man now.
Oh, wait, he is now, but does anybody, who knows who knows 50 Cent?
I don't know. I heard of
He
him.
do like.
Who would go to see their show? All right, there we go. Let's bring 50 Cent here. It's all right. So somebody like 50 Cent, he's not going to fill up the Coliseum. All right, he might, but I doubt it. Okay. So you know how much it costs to rent the Coliseum here? At one time, I don't know if it's still there because everything's going on. It was about $10,000 a day.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So you're not going to bring a musician in unless they know they're going to fill that space, because it costs too much to bring in. Even at 50% seating, that's too much money. There's no profit involved. So if I was 50 Cent, I'd be better off having a trailer that's a pageant wagon where the back, so all my equipment, I have to get my equipment back and forth anyway, my instruments and all that stuff, have some speakers already built in, drop the side of that trailer, plug in power somewhere. I can go to any Walmart parking spot or somewhere. And then, because where do they make their real money? Because the Coliseum makes the money off the seating for the most part. 50 Cent makes the money off the CDs and other things, merchandise. So they could just still have somebody hawking their stuff there. That's what I would do.
Isn't that what the Cape Regional Theater, that's why weren't they like about to go under because nobody was coming to the shows? And they
Which
had to
one?
Fill up Cape Regional Theater?
When was this?
I believe this was a couple years ago,
It's possible.
because nobody was coming to the shows because they weren't very interested. Now they have like Shrek, like,
Now, most theaters go through a phase, especially community theaters and regional theaters and such, because they're what we would call semi-professional, meaning they're not really professional. They're not like Equity, and I'll get into all that later. But they do some equity shows. In other words, they bring in professional people from, but the kind of professionals they bring in are not people you're going to know. they've done professional shows elsewhere, but they're not people you're gonna know the name of. It's not, and it wouldn't be like bringing Will Smith in, because most of us know who Will Smith. But if Will Smith did a show here at Cape Fear Regional, one, they couldn't afford him. Two, they would be sold out every show. Why? Not because people care how good he is. They just want to come see him. Not that he's bad, he's a good actor, but you know what I'm saying? It wouldn't have anything to do with that. Be like Denzel Washington. If he was to do a show here, it would be sold out every single one, right? Because it's Denzel Washington. So, and that's not a bad thing for Cape Fear, that'd be great. But you're not gonna pay for, because somebody like Will Smith or Denzel Washington, no matter how good they are in a play, they do that for fun. Their money and their business is movies. So if I'm Denzel Washington and Cape Fear Regional Theater wants me to do 2 months of performances pretty much every day for 2 months, I'm gonna say no. Why? Because somebody's gonna offer me 3 or 4 different movies during that time. Now, I might do a week or 2, but not at Cape Fear because nobody knows, they don't know that place. If this was let's say a big theater in Charlotte, maybe. But as far as I know, he's not done anything outside of New York City, outside of Broadway for years now. Denzel. Does that make sense to everybody? I mean, he might do something at one of the theaters in Los Angeles, but there's very few real theaters out there even. Most of them are in New York or Chicago, those kind of places. So Proscenium, Marina, Thrust, Alley, Black Box, Pageant Wagon. Are there any others? Yes. Environmental. It's not what you initially think it is. But anybody have an idea what it could be? Yes.
Maybe a stage outside.
No. That's another one we'll get into in a minute.
Do they just use the outdoors as their stage?
It could be, but it could be indoors.
Do they set the scene out that looks like outside?
Could be, but it could be indoors.
Yeah, but like indoors.
It could look like it's indoors too. Yeah.
They don't have a proper stage, they just use where they're at.
You're close. Environmental theater means this: the audience and the actors share the same space. So there is no real designated stage per se. They just share the same space. Kind of like a classroom. If I walked around the classroom, that would be environmental. Because now I'm not just staying here in my space and you stay in your space. Now I'm moving around you. Anybody ever been to Medieval Times? They have one in Myrtle Beach.
I've been to, it was like, I think.
Anybody been to like a Renaissance festival? Back in the old days kind of thing where if you've not been to one, they're really cool. So basically Renaissance festival, they dress up like medieval times, back in the old days where they wore the stuff. And you as an audience member are encouraged to dress in that kind of style. And you go to these things and you walk around amongst all these people. And they have places where you can buy goods from them. And then you can watch like somebody who trains hawks. They show you the hawk show. And they have people sword fighting. They usually do like a living chess match. So they have actors dressed up and they play the pawns and the rooks and the whatever, and they do the living chess. Right? Those kind of things?
That's the same thing.
Yeah.
That's environmental theater.
Like a bar.
Because they're all in the same place.
So it would kind of be like if a flash mob breaks out, everybody is in the same space, kind of, sort of.
Yeah. How about this one? Found space.
Just wherever.
Just exactly what it sounds like. This is taking any place that was not designed to be a theater and turning it into one. Anybody been to New York City?
Yes, one time.
Who's never been to New York City? We got to get you guys culturized. New York City is a whole different world.
Yes, it is.
It really is. It's great to visit. I wouldn't want to live there necessarily, but it's fun. Well, probably not good to visit right now, especially with the whole 14 days standing around waiting until you can go in kind of thing. Because we're from North Carolina, they don't want us in right now. But when back before the whole Corona thing, us coming into New York City, it was a great place to visit because it's like a whole different world. You go into New York City, there's something going on 24/7. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, there's something to do. If you need to go to the store, do it. You didn't have to go to just Walmart or whatever it's open. They had places open all the time. You wanted to go to theater? Hundreds of theaters. They're just everywhere. Museums, galleries, whatever, they're all over the place. New York City, you don't have to have a car. You don't drive. There are people that do, but you don't drive anywhere. You either take a taxi, a bus, take the subway, or you walk. Or you could ride a bicycle or something like that. But if it's in the actual Manhattan part, then everything's right there. You don't need to go anywhere. So you go stay at a hotel, wherever, if you're going to stay at a hotel. Your hotel is in walking distance of anything you need, literally. Otherwise, you take a bus or taxi or a sub to get subway, to get wherever you need to go. But there are certain things you have to do when you're in New York City, not like places to go. There are certain things you should go to. You should go see a Broadway show if you're in New York. You should go to one of the museums. You should try to go to the Empire State Building or a couple of places, Statue of Liberty, those kind of things, because you can't find those anywhere else. Okay? So there are certain things you can do. But there's certain things you should do. For instance, if you're a guy and you keep your wallet in your back pocket, put your wallet in your front pocket and don't put your money in your wallet.
Nope.
You know what I'm saying? It's not as bad at times as it is at other times. You don't make eye contact with anybody on the street. Definitely don't make eye contact with anybody in the subway, because that's when the crazies start coming out. Not that everybody's crazy, you just don't know. But anyway, it's just a whole different kind of society. And there's nowhere else like it. Chicago is about the only close place, and it's not quite the same. But if you ever go to New York City, go to Battery Park. Anybody been to Battery Park? Battery Park, if you go there, that's where you go to get on the ferry to take you to Staten Island or to take you to the Statue of Liberty or Ellis Island or those kinds. They have street performers that line up. They each have to. Here's how it was. If you want to be a street performer in New York City, you go and get a license, and you have to tell them exactly where you're going to be during the day and what days. What time, what day. And it's a lucrative thing. People fight over those spots, because if you're in the right spot, that's money. You don't have to do anything. Last time I was there was a guy sitting there in Battery Park, a big burly guy with big old poofy hairdo, sitting there with a sign that says, "Let you insult me for a quarter."
What?
There's no telling how much money he made. I kept thinking, if I'm faster than you, I don't have to give you a quarter. I can insult you anytime I want. But I didn't want to take the chance that I wasn't faster than him, because I don't run. But, I mean, think about it. That's money. Now, the reason why you have to get a license, the reason you have to tell them where you're at and all that stuff, is because then you have to pay taxes on it at the end. See what I'm saying? But you could make, standing on a street performer, they can make $100,000 a year, easy, if they've got the right kind of thing people are willing to throw money at. So, but you go to Battery Park, Street performers, that's found space. It's also environmental, because they're right there with you. Well, I've seen anything from acrobats to jugglers to whatever. The other thing is that when you're in New York City, you'll be walking down the street and see these street performers in costume and have no idea what's going on. I was there, this was a long time ago, back before some of them were born. We were in New York City, first time I'd been, and we went with a friend. I had a friend that was in a Broadway show at the time, and he took us around, showed us around a little bit. We went to eat, and then he and I and one of the girls in the group all went, we went bar hopping, basically. Not that either one of us drank, but he was, so we were just trying to get stories out of him and stuff. So we were in a bar in Hell's Kitchen, like 1 o'clock in the morning, Sunday morning or something, Saturday night, whatever. And we're sitting there talking. We're sitting at a table in the window watching the street. And I'm sitting facing the street because I wanted to see what was going on. I'm one of those, if I'm in a restaurant or whatever, my back is not to the door. You know what I'm saying?
That's me.
See? But anyway, so we're sitting there, and he's talking, and he's just talking away. And I look, here's the Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz walk by. Middle of the night. And it's like, he said, what is it? I said, it's the Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz. He said, only in New York. That happened a couple of times. Not the Tin Man, but other things. Anyway, that's just, it's interesting. New York City's fun. What else you got? Any others? Somebody said it. They didn't name it. They said what type it was. No, I can't think of the name. It's that easy. Ah, now I got it. Amphitheater,
Yes.
which is, somebody said it earlier. Theater that's outside. Amphitheater is outdoor theater. Festival Park has an outdoor theater. They have an amphitheater. Now, this is the most common because it's the easiest setup, easiest to do, easiest workflow. These, if you're talking about sporting events, arena and thrust and alley are the most common there. Depending on the size and or how many people they want to sit. Colleges oftentimes will have black box, sometimes it's called educational theater. Pageant wagons are also very useful. You're seeing more of them now than used to because, again, it costs money to get things from one place to another. And the last thing you want to do is have all this equipment that you have to pay to get from here to there, and now you got to pay for a space to put it all together. How about just having it in the space and just make a space? This doesn't cost much of anything, although you do have to have a license most of the time for either one of these. And of course this one, if you're talking about outside, on any of them really, if you're talking about outside, you're relying on the weather. You're not going to do a play outside in late May, not during the daytime. Why? It's hot. Could be raining too. You're not likely to do one outside at this time of the year. Why? Hot and or rainy, because we're in hurricane season. So it really just depends on, now at night it's not as bad, right? But we did Hamlet here on campus. So there's the Tony Rand Center right there, just here in front of, from that side of the Tony Rand towards the gym. Outside we did Hamlet 5-6 years ago in May. We did Saturday or Sunday matinees, 2 o'clock. About killed me. We were all wearing robes and such.
Oh, no.
Man, I was about, that king's about to be unrobed. It's like why didn't I do the Emperor's New Clothes or something like that? That would have been a much better, wouldn't it? All right, we'd had to charge more money, but I'd have felt better.
Ace wanted too.
Huh?
Ace wanted.
Yeah. Phew. But it was hot. Telling you. I couldn't believe how hot it was. Well, actually, I could. It weren't well, it's just, man. All right, that's a good place to stop.